From assassinations and sudden deaths in office to the quiet passing of former heads of state, Africa has lost many of its leaders between 2000 and 2025. These men shaped nations, left behind legacies, and in some cases stirred deep controversy. This is the story of all African presidents who died within that period. Beginning at number 1, Laurent Désiré Kabila, Democratic Republic of the Congo. Laurent Désiré Kabila rose to power in May 1997 after leading a rebellion that overthrew the longtime dictator Mobutu Sese Seko. His takeover ended Mobutu's 32-year reign and brought a wave of hope to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Kabila presented himself as a man of the people, committed to restoring dignity and sovereignty to a nation exhausted by dictatorship. Kabila's presidency lasted just 3 years and 8 months. But his rule was marked by political instability and growing conflict. He quickly distanced himself from the foreign allies who helped him gain power, which strained relations with Rwanda and Uganda. The country was thrown into the devastating Second Congo War, often called Africa's World War, as multiple nations and armed groups became involved. On January 18, 2001, tragedy struck when Kabila was assassinated inside his palace in Kinshasa by one of his bodyguards. Reports suggest the assassination may have been linked to internal rivalries and international interference. His death shocked the nation, leaving behind a power vacuum. He was succeeded by his son, Joseph Kabila, who would go on to rule the country for nearly 2 decades. At number 2, Mohamed Haji Ibrahim Igal, Somaliland. Mohamed Haji Ibrahim Igal was one of the most influential Somali politicians of the 20th century. He first served briefly as Prime Minister of Somalia in the 1960s, before becoming president of the self-declared Republic of Somaliland in 1993. Although Somaliland was not internationally recognized, Igal's leadership was critical in bringing stability to the breakaway region after Somalia collapsed into civil war. Igal served as president for 9 years, working tirelessly to establish peace, rebuild institutions, and maintain order in a part of the Horn of Africa that had been ravaged by violence. His pragmatic leadership style earned him respect across clan lines and among regional leaders. On May 3, 2002, Mohamed Igal died in a South African hospital after complications from surgery. His passing was mourned not only in Somaliland, but also across the Somali-speaking world. To many, he symbolized a rare period of stability and progress in a region often defined by turmoil. At number 3, Gnassingbé Eyadema. Togo Gnassingbé Eyadema was one of Africa's longest-serving leaders. He first seized power in 1967 after staging a military coup and went on to rule Togo with an iron grip for 38 years. During his reign, Eyadema cultivated a strong cult of personality, often portraying himself as the father of the Togolese nation. His rule, however, was marred by allegations of authoritarianism, corruption, and human rights abuses. Despite this, he managed to maintain power through a combination of patronage, repression, and political maneuvering. Eyadema's longevity in office made him a controversial figure, both within and outside Togo. On February 5, 2005, he died of a heart attack while being flown abroad for medical treatment. His sudden death caused shockwaves across the country. In a controversial move, the Togolese army immediately installed his son, Faure Gnassingbé, as president, sparking accusations of a hereditary transfer of power. At number 4, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, Nigeria. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua became president of Nigeria in 2007, following what many described as one of the most flawed elections in the country's history. Despite the controversies surrounding his election, Yar'Adua quickly distinguished himself as a man of integrity, humility, and a leader who truly cared about the people. He introduced the concept of the rule of law as the guiding principle of his administration and sought to reform the Niger Delta crisis by initiating an amnesty program for militants. Unfortunately, Yar'Adua's presidency was plagued by health issues. He frequently traveled abroad for medical treatment, and by late 2009, he was absent from office for months, sparking a constitutional crisis. After just 3 years in power, he passed away on May 5, 2010, from pericarditis, an inflammation of the lining around the heart. His death was a turning point in Nigeria's democracy, as it marked the first time a sitting president died in office during the Fourth Republic. His deputy, Goodluck Jonathan, was sworn in as president, ushering in a new era of leadership. Yar'Adua remains remembered as a leader of peace, integrity, and unfulfilled potential. At number 5, Omar Bongo. Gabon. Omar Bongo. Ondimba was a towering figure in African politics, having ruled Gabon for an extraordinary 42 years, from 1967 until 2009. He was one of the world's longest-serving presidents and became a symbol of political continuity in Central Africa. During his rule, Gabon became a key ally of France, and Bongo skillfully used the country's oil wealth to maintain political stability and patronage networks. While many praised his ability to keep Gabon peaceful in a turbulent region, critics accused him of authoritarianism, corruption, and nepotism. Under his watch, Gabon became heavily dependent on oil revenues, with little investment in diversifying the economy. Despite these criticisms, Bongo remained a master political strategist, surviving decades of coups and regime changes across Africa. On June 8, 2009, Omar Bongo died in a Spanish hospital after a long battle with cancer. His death ended one of the longest presidencies in history. He was succeeded by his son, Ali Bongo Ondimba, in a move that kept the Bongo family firmly in power. At number 6, Félix Malum. Chad Félix Malum was a career soldier who rose to prominence during a turbulent era in Chad's history. In 1975, after the assassination of President François Tombalbaye, Malum was appointed head of state. He ruled Chad for 4 years, from 1975 to 1979, a period marked by civil conflict and divisions between the north and south of the country. Malum's presidency was defined by attempts to bring stability to Chad, but his leadership faced constant challenges from armed rebel groups, most notably those led by Hissène Habré and Goukouni Ouédé. By 1979, internal conflicts forced him to resign, and he went into exile in Nigeria and later lived a quiet life away from the political spotlight. Decades later, on June 12, 2009, Félix Malum passed away in France at the age of 77, reportedly from natural causes. His death served as a reminder of the difficult years that shaped Chad's early political trajectory after independence. At number 7, Bingu wa Mutharika. Malawi Bingu wa Mutharika became Malawi's president in 2004 after winning an election backed by outgoing President Bekele Muluzi. At first, he was seen as a puppet of Muluzi, but he quickly broke away from that perception by launching an anti-corruption campaign that targeted even his closest allies. Mutharika was re-elected in 2009 and seemed to be steering Malawi toward economic growth. However, his second term was overshadowed by accusations of authoritarianism, suppression of dissent, and growing unpopularity. Still, his supporters praised him for food security initiatives and his vision of making Malawi self-sufficient. On April 5, 2012, Mutharika suffered a fatal heart attack and was pronounced dead in Lilongwe. He had been in power for 8 years. His death threw Malawi into political uncertainty, but his vice president, Joyce Banda, was eventually sworn in, becoming the country's first female president. At number 8, Malambakay Sanha, Guinea-Bissau. Malambakay Sanha was a veteran politician who became president of Guinea-Bissau in 2009 after the assassination of his predecessor, João Bernardo Vieira. Sanha was elected in a climate of fragility, as the small West African nation was struggling with political instability, drug trafficking, and repeated military interventions in politics. Although he sought to bring peace and stability, Sanha was already battling health challenges when he took office. His health issues worsened during his presidency, forcing him to seek frequent treatment abroad. Despite his frailty, he remained committed to strengthening democratic institutions and rebuilding Guinea-Bissau's fractured political system. On January 9, 2012, Sanha died in Paris while receiving medical treatment for a long-term illness. He had served for just 3 years. His passing once again plunged Guinea-Bissau into uncertainty, underlining the fragility of governance in the country. At number 9, Michael Sata, Zambia. Michael Sata, fondly known as King Cobra for his sharp tongue and fiery rhetoric, became Zambia's president in 2011 after years of being in opposition. He was a populist leader who connected with ordinary citizens, promising to fight poverty, corruption, and improve infrastructure. Sata's presidency, however, was cut short by persistent health problems. He spent long periods abroad for medical treatment, fueling speculation about his ability to govern effectively. His leadership style was often confrontational, but he remained popular among the poor, who saw him as a man who spoke their language. On October 28, 2014, Sata died in London while undergoing treatment for an undisclosed illness. He had served for just 3 years. His death shocked the nation and left a political vacuum, but also cemented his place in Zambian history as a leader who rose from grassroots politics to the presidency. At number 10, Pierre Nkurunziza, Burundi. Pierre Nkurunziza was a former rebel leader who rose to power in 2005, becoming Burundi's first democratically elected president after years of civil war. His presidency lasted 15 years, during which he sought to rebuild the country, promote peace, and reconcile divided communities. Nkurunziza was initially praised for uniting the nation, but his legacy became more controversial after 2015, when he announced plans to run for a third term, sparking widespread protests and violence. His decision was seen by many as unconstitutional, and Burundi entered one of its darkest political crises in recent history. On June 8, 2020, Nkurunziza died suddenly, officially from a heart attack, though many suspected it was linked to COVID-19. He was just 55 years old. His death came weeks before he was due to step down, leaving behind a mixed legacy of early hope, but later authoritarianism. At number 11, John Magufuli, Tanzania. John Pombe Magufuli, famously known as the Bulldozer, became the president of Tanzania in 2015. Before his presidency, he served as a cabinet minister and earned his nickname for his relentless approach to road construction and infrastructure projects. When he assumed office, he immediately made headlines with his crackdown on government spending, corruption, and inefficiency. Magufuli's style of leadership was bold and uncompromising. He cut extravagant government costs, introduced austerity measures, and became widely admired by ordinary citizens for his fight against corruption. However, his administration was also criticized for authoritarian tendencies, including stifling media freedom and opposition voices. After 6 years in office, Magufuli's presidency ended abruptly. On March 17, 2021, he died from heart complications, though speculation of COVID-19-related illness lingered due to his controversial handling of the pandemic. His sudden passing shocked the nation, leading to the swearing-in of Samia Suluhu Hassan, Tanzania's first female president. At number 12, Hage Geingob, Namibia. Hage Geingob became Namibia's third president in 2015 after years of serving in government and as prime minister. Known for his charisma and eloquence, Geingob sought to continue the legacy of the nation's founding leaders by promoting economic growth and inclusivity. He launched the Harambee Prosperity Plan, aiming to tackle inequality, poverty, and unemployment. Despite his ambitious agenda, Namibia faced persistent economic challenges during his presidency, largely due to a downturn in commodity prices and rising debt. Still, Geingob was admired for his dedication to democracy, transparency, and his warm, approachable personality. After serving 9 years, Geingob passed away on February 4, 2024, following a battle with cancer. His death marked the first time a sitting Namibian president died in office, and the nation mourned deeply, remembering him as a leader who always called himself the people's servant. At number 13, Shehu Shagari, Nigeria. Shehu Shagari was Nigeria's first executive president, elected in 1979 after years of military rule. His presidency marked the beginning of the Second Republic, and he ruled for 4 years until 1983, when he was overthrown in a coup led by Major General Muhammadu Buhari. Shagari's government focused on housing, agriculture, and education, but it was plagued by corruption allegations and economic challenges, particularly following a decline in global oil prices. Despite the difficulties, he remained one of Nigeria's most respected elder statesmen, known for his humility and soft-spoken leadership style. On December 28, 2018, Shehu Shagari died at the age of 93 after a brief illness. His passing was widely mourned across Nigeria, with many remembering him as a symbol of democracy and moderation in a nation often defined by political turbulence. At number 14, Sam Nujoma, Namibia. Sam Nujoma is remembered as the founding father of Namibia. He led the Southwest Africa People's Organization, SWAPO, in the long struggle for independence from South African rule. When Namibia finally gained independence in 1990, Nujoma became its first president, serving for 15 years until 2005. During his presidency, Nujoma focused on reconciliation, nation building, and laying the foundation for democracy. However, his leadership was not without criticism, particularly over land reform policies and the slow pace of economic redistribution. Nevertheless, he is revered as the man who secured freedom for his people. In early 2025, Nujoma died at the age of 95 from natural causes. Namibia and the world paid tribute to him as a liberation hero and a visionary leader whose sacrifices ensured the nation's sovereignty. At number 15, Edgar Lungu, Zambia. Edgar Lungu rose to power in 2015. Following the death of President Michael Sata, a lawyer by training, Lungu served as Minister of Defense before becoming head of state. He won re-election in 2016 and ruled for a total of 6 years, until his defeat in the 2021 elections by Hakainde Hichilema. Lungu's presidency was marked by economic difficulties, mounting debt, and accusations of authoritarianism, particularly toward opposition parties and independent media. Nonetheless, he retained a loyal following, especially among Zambians who saw him as approachable and rooted in humility. On June 5, 2025, Edgar Lungu died in South Africa while undergoing treatment at the age of 68. His death reopened debates about his legacy. A leader who guided Zambia through turbulent years, but left behind a mixed record of achievement and controversy. At number 16, Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria. Muhammadu Buhari had one of the most unusual careers in African politics. He first came to power as a military head of state in 1983 after overthrowing Shehu Shagari in a coup. His military regime, though short-lived, became known for its war against indiscipline, strict austerity, and harsh crackdowns on corruption. In 1985, he was ousted in another coup and spent decades largely outside the political spotlight. Against all odds, Buhari staged a comeback, reinventing himself as a Democrat. After 3 failed attempts, he finally won the presidency in 2015 under the All Progressives Congress, APC. He served for 8 years, stepping down in 2023. His government focused on fighting Boko Haram, tackling corruption, and stabilizing the economy, though critics accused him of nepotism, insecurity, mismanagement, and economic stagnation. On July 13, 2025, Muhammadu Buhari died in a London hospital after battling a prolonged illness. His death stirred mixed emotions across Nigeria. Some hailed him as a patriot who dedicated his life to service, while others remembered him for missed opportunities during a critical moment in the nation's history.